The girl was so small that Vincent Caruso's security almost mistook her for a shadow. She slipped between two suited men at the lobby doors, stumbled on the marble, and caught herself by grabbing the hem of Vincent's overcoat with 3 trembling fingers. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, her jacket was too thin for December, and her eyes were wide in a way that didn't belong to a child who should be thinking about snacks and cartoons. She looked up at him and whispered, "Sir, that boy lives in my house." Vincent didn't shout, he didn't flinch. Fear had trained his face for years, but inside, something shifted, because children didn't approach him unless somebody pushed them. In his world, kids were kept far away like glass, too easy to break, too loud when shattered. Yet this one stood there, breathing fast, staring at him like he was the only adult who could stop something terrible. The nearest guard stepped forward. Vincent lifted one hand, slow and final. The guard froze. Vincent lowered himself into a crouch until he was eye level with her. Up close, he noticed the faint purple mark on her wrist, like a grip had been too tight. "What's your name?" he asked, keeping his voice calm. "But before we continue, I want to make a very special invitation. Subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This helps me see that you support me and are enjoying my stories. And comment below which city you're watching us from. Now let's continue." Her mouth opened, then closed. She swallowed like the answer was stuck. "Mia," she managed. Her voice was tiny, breathy. She couldn't have been older than 4. "He's in my house," she repeated, as if Vincent hadn't understood. "He sleeps on my couch." Vincent kept his tone gentle, though his mind was already running. "What boy, Mia?" "A little boy," she said. "He came last night. He had a key." She patted her pocket, then panicked when she remembered it wasn't there. Not my key, his key for the red door. Vincent's heartbeat changed. He had not heard those words, red door, in over 20 years, not since his father showed him how secrets lived inside walls. Vincent forced his face to stay neutral. "Who brought him to your house?" he asked. Mia's bottom lip trembled. "A man," she whispered. "He was nice first. He gave me candy. Then he said I had to be brave. He said you would help. He said if I told anyone else, my mommy would cry forever." Vincent's stomach tightened from recognition. That was how threats were delivered to children, not with weapons, but with pictures. He straightened slightly and looked past Mia. Marcus, his security chief, moved through the lobby like a silent storm, already reading the situation. Vincent spoke without turning. "Marcus, get the elevator. Nobody touches her. Nobody scares her." Marcus nodded once and pushed his team back. "Yes, boss." Vincent offered his hand to Mia. She stared at it, unsure, then placed her small fingers in his as if she expected pain. Her hand was cold. Vincent hated that detail most. Cold meant she'd been outside too long. Cold meant nobody had wrapped her in safety. They rode the private elevator up. The building hummed with wealth, but Vincent felt only the pressure of time. If someone had put a boy in Mia's home and sent Mia to him, it wasn't random. It was a message. And messages were always timed to land when the receiver was weakest. In the penthouse foyer, Vincent guided Mia to a chair and knelt again. "Mia," he said, "you did the right thing. You're safe here. Do you know your address?" She shook her head fast, tears gathering. "I know the blue mailbox," she said, "and the lady with the dog that barks." Marcus exhaled, controlled. "We can find her by street cams," he murmured. "She came through our lobby cameras." Vincent nodded. "Do it, quietly." Mia's gaze drifted to the hallway where Vincent kept family photos. "The boy looked at pictures," she whispered. "He said, 'Daddy?'" Vincent's throat went dry. A boy with a key for a red door. A boy calling for a father. A child delivered into a little girl's living room like a parcel. Marcus returned with a tablet, face tight. "Boss, we've got a grey sedan across the avenue," he said. It idled for 7 minutes when she came in. Driver stayed inside. Vincent looked down at Mia. "Sweetheart," he said softly, "can you tell me what the man looked like?" Mia squeezed her eyes shut, like the memory hurt. "He smelled like oranges," she whispered, "and he had shiny shoes." That was a child's description, and it was enough. Vincent knew men who wore shiny shoes and used sweet scents to hide cold intentions. Vincent walked to the wall where a portrait of his late father hung. He had kept it there as a warning to himself. Mia's words echoed. Red door. He reached behind the frame and found the hidden latch he had sworn he'd never touch again. The portrait swung outward. The small panel behind it was painted a dull red. Mia made a tiny, frightened sound. "See?" she whispered. "I told you." Vincent's mouth went dry. Only 3 men still alive knew this latch existed, and one of them was buried in Queens. He pressed his palm against the red panel, feeling old paint and older guilt. His father's voice seemed to rise from memory. Keep family above everything. But Vincent had never been sure what family meant, or who it was meant to protect. Now a child's whisper had forced the past into the light. Vincent stared at the red panel as if it were a wound reopening. He realized with sudden clarity that this wasn't only about a boy in a stranger's house. Someone knew Vincent's oldest secret, and they had used a fragile 4-year-old to deliver the key. Vincent did not call the police. He called Marcus. "Find her mother," he said, nodding toward Mia, who sat curled on the foyer chair as if she wanted to vanish. "Find the house she means, now." Minutes later, street footage gave them a match. Mia outside a narrow Brooklyn building beside a blue mailbox. Vincent drove there in a plain SUV, no convoy, no show. Mia sat in the back seat, feet dangling, hands clenched so hard her fingers shook. "You did good," Vincent told her. "No one's mad at you. The man said you're scary," she whispered. Vincent swallowed. "People say things." She looked up with glassy eyes. "Are you going to make my mommy cry forever?" The question landed like a punch. Vincent kept his voice steady. "No, I promise." The building smelled of laundry soap. Marcus knocked. No answer. Mia murmured, "Mommy sleeps. She works nights." Vincent tried the knob. Unlocked. He stepped into a small living room. A couch, a table, kids' drawings taped near the TV. And on the couch sat the boy. He was about 4, dark curls, oversized hoodie, knees tucked up. When he saw Vincent, he didn't cry or run. He watched with a stillness that felt trained. Mia whispered behind Vincent, "That's him." Vincent crouched a few steps away. "Hey, I'm Vincent. What's your name?" The boy blinked. "Eli." "You hungry, Eli?" Eli shook his head once. Then quietly, "Where's Mia's mommy?" "She's sleeping," Mia said, voice thin. Eli glanced at a closed bedroom door. "He said don't wake her." Vincent's eyes narrowed. "Who said that?" Eli hesitated, then pulled a brass key from his pocket. Cheap ring. A tiny red mark scratched into the plastic. "For the red door," he whispered. "He said it belongs to my dad." Vincent felt the words in his chest like a cold coin. He forced his face calm. "Where did you get it?" "The man gave it," Eli said. "He said the boss would come." A floorboard creaked behind the bedroom door. A woman's voice, sleepy and startled, cut through. "Mia?" The door opened. Mia's mother stepped out in scrubs and an old sweatshirt, hair messy, eyes wide. She froze at the sight of Vincent and Marcus. Her gaze snapped to Mia, then to Eli, then back to Vincent. "Who are you?" she demanded, fear trembling under anger. "Why are men in my house?" Mia ran to her and clung to her waist. "Mommy, I told him. The boy was here." Vincent lifted both hands, palms open. "Ma'am, I'm Vincent Caruso. Your daughter came to my building because she was scared. I'm here to make sure no one hurts her." At the name, the woman went pale. "I don't want your help," she said, voice breaking. "I want you out." Vincent nodded once. "I understand. But someone used your home. They put that boy here and sent your daughter to me. That makes you a target, whether you want it or not." Her eyes filled. "I found him on the couch when I came home," she whispered. "He wouldn't leave. He just sat there like he belonged." Eli's gaze stayed on Vincent. "He said this was the safe place," he murmured. Marcus scanned the room and noticed a folded note under a cup. He lifted it with gloved fingers and read, "Bring the key to Caruso. If you don't, the woman pays." Mia's mother covered her mouth. Her shoulders shook once, silent. Marcus moved to the blinds and lifted them a fraction. "Grey sedan across the street," he whispered. "Same model from your building." Vincent's pulse quickened. Whoever was behind this wasn't only watching him. They were watching this apartment, this mother, this child, this boy. Vincent looked at Mia's mother. "Take Mia to the bathroom," he said softly. "Lock the door." Her eyes widened. "What's happening?" Vincent didn't lie. "Someone's outside." Eli's small shoulders rose. He clutched the key. "He said if I dropped it, I'd disappear," he whispered. Vincent covered Eli's tiny fist with his hand, gentle. "You're not disappearing," he said, low and absolute. "Not today." Outside, the grey sedan's engine idled like a heartbeat, and Vincent understood. This wasn't a warning anymore. It was the first move of a takeover. Marcus signaled 2 men down the back hallway. One checked the fire escape, the other listened at the front door. Vincent heard gravel crunch outside, then the soft click of a car door. Whoever it was, they weren't just watching anymore. "Back exit?" Vincent asked. Mia's mother nodded, shaking. "Kitchen window, fire escape." Vincent lifted Eli into his arms. The boy was too light and he didn't resist. He only pressed the key to his chest like it was proof he existed. Marcus shoved the kitchen window up and guided them onto the metal steps. Cold air slapped Vincent's face. From the living room, a man's voice rose, impatient. "Open up!" The doorknob rattled. Then came a heavy thud against the door. Vincent forced his feet down the fire escape, faster, boots clanging. Mia's mother followed, breath hitching, while Mia stayed locked in the bathroom as Vincent ordered. At the bottom, an SUV waited in the alley, engine running, planted there by Marcus on instinct. Vincent buckled Eli in, then turned to the mother. "Your name?" "Nora," she whispered. "Nora," Vincent said, "you and Mia are coming under my protection. You did nothing wrong, but you're in the middle now. I'm sorry." As they pulled away, Vincent caught the grey sedan in the mirror. It was still there, door open, a figure beside it with a phone to his ear, calm as if reporting a delivery. Whoever had put Eli in a fragile little girl's home wasn't afraid of Vincent. They were inviting him to chase. Nora started to protest, but Marcus cut her off with a quiet, "Move." Vincent watched Eli's face in the dim light and saw no tears, only endurance. That scared him more than any weapon. Vincent moved Nora and Mia into one of his safe apartments on the Upper West Side, the kind of place that looked ordinary on the outside and was monitored from every angle on the inside. Nora hated it immediately. She kept asking why men with radios were now part of her life, why her daughter had been pulled into something she didn't understand. Vincent didn't blame her. If fear had a scent, it smelled like a mother realizing she couldn't protect her child from a world she never signed up for. Mia sat on the couch with her knees up, wrapped in Vincent's coat like it was a blanket. She stared at the wall, quiet, exhausted. When Vincent offered her juice, she took a sip and then held the cup with both hands as if it might keep her steady. Eli stood near the window, watching the city lights. He didn't act like a guest. He acted like someone waiting for instructions. Vincent sent Nora to a bedroom with Donna, the retired EMT Vincent trusted, so Nora could breathe without seeing suits. Then Vincent knelt in front of Eli again, keeping his voice soft. "Eli," he said, "who was the man with oranges?" Eli's eyes narrowed as if he was replaying a sound in his head. "He talked on the phone," Eli murmured. "He said, 'Sal, it's done.'" Vincent's pulse tightened. "You heard the name Sal?" Eli nodded. He said it loud. The boy's fingers curled tighter around the key. "He said the boss will open the red door and cry." Vincent felt a cold sting behind his ribs. Cry was not a word people attached to Vincent Caruso. It was a word enemies used when they wanted to imagine him weak. Marcus's phone buzzed. He listened, then his expression tightened. "Boss," he said, "someone accessed our building cameras last night, not through our system, through the maintenance vendor. Someone used a back credential." Vincent's mind snapped to one name, sharper now. Sal Russo. Sal controlled vendors, paperwork, quiet channels. Sal smiled while he did it. Sal always knew which doors were unlocked. Vincent didn't look away from Eli. "Did the man say anything else?" Eli's voice dropped. He said, "If the kid runs, you know what to do." Vincent kept his face calm, but his throat tightened. He couldn't let the word "do" carry weight for a child. "Eli," he said, "what did he mean by kid?" Eli's gaze flicked to Mia on the couch. "He looked at her," Eli whispered. "He said she's small, easy." Vincent's stomach turned. He crossed the room to Mia and crouched near her, careful not to loom. "Mia," he said, "did the man touch you?" Her eyes widened. She shook her head fast. "He grabbed my wrist," she whispered. "Just that." She tucked her hand under Vincent's coat, as if hiding it could erase the bruise. "He said I'm brave like my daddy." Vincent felt heat rise behind his eyes. "Your daddy would be proud," he said, even though he didn't know if that was true. He needed it to be true for her. Vincent turned back to Eli. "Eli, do you know why you were brought to Mia's house?" Eli shrugged. too small for the weight of it. He said it's safe, Eli whispered. He said the lady will keep you until the boss comes. Then the boss will bring me to my real house. Vincent's jaw tightened. What real house? Eli lifted the key. The red door house. Vincent stared at the key, then at the boy's face. Eli wasn't lying. He didn't even know how. He was repeating a plan built by adults who never had to carry the consequences in their bodies. Vincent made a decision. It landed inside him like a stone, heavy and necessary. Marcus, he said, we're going back to the penthouse. Marcus frowned. Sal's watching the building. Then we won't use the front, Vincent replied. We use the service entrance, no cameras, no normal routes. Marcus nodded, already moving. Vincent faced Nora, who had returned to the living room, eyes red. Nora, he said, tonight you stay here with Mia. My people will protect you. No arguing. Nora's mouth opened. Then she saw Vincent's face and stopped. She wasn't seeing a boss then. She was seeing a man who had finally understood what losing a child could feel like. In the penthouse, Marcus killed the lights and swept every room. Clean, he whispered, though his shoulders stayed tense. Vincent went straight to the portrait. The hidden latch gave under his fingers. The frame swung open. The red panel waited, silent, like it had been holding its breath. Eli stood behind Vincent, watching. That's it, Eli whispered. Vincent entered the code his father had once forced him to memorize. The lock clicked. The red door opened. Inside, the safe room smelled like old paper and cedar. A lockbox sat on a shelf. Vincent lifted it out and set it on the floor. His hands didn't shake until he saw the folder on top, thick, labeled in his father's handwriting. The truth about Vincent. He opened it. The first page wasn't a confession. It was a certificate. Adoption. He stared at the paper until the letters blurred. All the years, all the orders, all the decisions he'd ever made, built on a name that wasn't truly his. Vincent's vision narrowed, and the room went quiet in a way that felt impossible, as if even the city had stopped to listen. Behind him, Eli whispered, "He said you would cry." Vincent finally understood why someone had sent a child with a key. They weren't trying to scare him. They were trying to erase him. Vincent's first instinct was to tear the paper in half, not because it would change the truth, but because his body still believed rage could protect him from pain. He forced himself to breathe, slow and quiet, so Eli wouldn't see him break. Eli hovered in the doorway of the red room, clutching the brass key. The boy watched Vincent the way Mia had watched him earlier. Not with trust, not with fear, but with a careful measuring, like he needed to know whether this adult would turn dangerous. Marcus stepped inside and read the first line of the certificate. His face tightened. "Boss, you're adopted." Vincent didn't answer right away. He turned pages, eyes scanning dates, signatures, a Brooklyn group home name he had tried to bury. His father's handwriting appeared in the margins, confident and cruelly neat. The file wasn't just proof. It was a map of how Vincent had been built. On the shelf sat a small recorder. Vincent picked it up, thumb hovering. He hated recordings. Proof was a weapon that didn't need muscle. But his father had left this for a reason. He pressed play. Anthony Caruso's voice filled the safe room, older and rougher than Vincent remembered, but unmistakably his father's. "If you're hearing this, you found the red door," the recording began. "That means the lie finally caught you." Vincent's throat tightened. The voice went on, calm like a man confessing because he no longer had to pay for it. Anthony admitted he had taken Vincent from a group home when Vincent was 6, not out of kindness, but out of need. Anthony's infant son had died, and a boss without an heir was blood in the water. So Anthony bought a child who could be shaped, renamed him, and taught him that love was conditional. The recording named the helper, casually, like mentioning weather. "Sal Russo handled the paperwork," Anthony said. "He scared the right people quiet. He made the world agree you were mine." Marcus's jaw clenched. Vincent felt something crack in him, not hatred, but grief so sharp, it almost looked like anger. Sal hadn't just been a friend, he'd been an architect. Anthony's voice softened. "You became strong," he said. "Not because I raised you right, but because you refused to die. I'm sorry for what I made you." Vincent's eyes burned. He wanted to spit at the apology. He also wanted to hold it, because it was the closest thing to truth he'd ever gotten. Then Anthony said the name that changed the room again. "There is a boy," his father continued. "Eli. He is my blood. I hid him from Sal because Sal would use him as a flag or a knife. If Sal has found him, you must protect him even if you hate me. The Empire is poison. Do not feed it to a child." Eli's small face lifted at his name. His fingers tightened around the key. Vincent paused the recording chest tight. He looked at Eli as if seeing him for the first time. The boy's eyes were dark, steady, and there was something familiar in the shape of his brow, the set of his mouth. Vincent had spent years studying Anthony's face in mirrors, wondering which parts were inherited and which were learned. Now he was looking at the inheritance itself. Marcus spoke quietly. "So Eli is your father's son?" Vincent swallowed. "Yes." "And Sal knows," Marcus said, voice hard. Vincent nodded. The pieces clicked together precisely. Sal didn't need to shoot Vincent to take everything. He needed to prove Vincent wasn't a Caruso, then parade Eli as the rightful heir. Vincent would be erased in courtrooms and boardrooms, the cleanest assassination. Vincent turned pages in the folder until he found a sealed envelope. On the front, in Anthony's handwriting, were 2 words: "For Grace." Vincent froze. Grace Mallory. A name he hadn't allowed himself to speak in years. He had loved her once, before love started feeling like a liability. He had pushed her away with money and silence, telling himself he was saving her from his life. Now his father's last instructions were addressed to her. Vincent opened the envelope. Inside was a notarized document naming Grace Mallory as neutral executor of the Caruso Trust until Eli reached adulthood, along with copies of account numbers and a list of contingencies, all designed to keep Sal from grabbing control. At the bottom was a handwritten note. "Grace, if Sal comes, you run. If Vincent comes, tell him the truth. He deserves at least that." Vincent's stomach turned. "Grace is alive?" he asked, half to Marcus, half to the empty air. Marcus nodded once. "We can find her." Vincent looked at Eli. "Do you know Grace?" he asked gently. Eli shook his head. "I know Mia," he whispered, then added, "and the man with oranges." Vincent's phone buzzed. Unknown number. His pulse sharpened. Only one kind of person called from unknown numbers in his world. He answered. "Talk." Sal Russo's voice slid through the line, smooth as always. "Vincent," Sal said like they were old friends arranging dinner. "I heard you took a little trip to Brooklyn." Vincent's blood went cold. Sal knew already. Of course he did. Sal chuckled. "Don't panic. I'm not mad. I'm proud. You're finally opening doors you were too scared to touch." Vincent tightened his grip on the phone. "What do you want, Sal?" Sal's tone stayed pleasant. "Bring me what you found in the Red Room. Bring me the boy. Then we can talk about how to keep the woman and the little girl breathing." Vincent's eyes lifted to Eli, who watched him carefully, listening even if he didn't understand every word. Sal added, quieter, sharper, "You have 12 hours. The line went dead. Vincent stood in the Red Room, adoption papers in one hand and a child's future in the other. For the first time, he understood that survival wasn't the goal anymore. Protection was. Vincent left Eli with Marcus in a different safe apartment, farther from Nora and Mia, because he didn't want fear to spread like smoke between children. He gave Eli the bear Marcus had bought from a pharmacy on the way back, cheap, plush, crooked smile, and watched the boy accept it without hugging it, as if comfort was something he needed permission to trust. Then Vincent went to Manhattan to meet Sal Russo. He didn't bring a gun in his hands. He brought one in his plan. Sal's office sat 2 floors below Vincent's, close enough to feel like family, close enough to be a trap. Sal greeted him with a warm grin and a coffee already poured, like he knew Vincent's habits better than Vincent did. "Vince," Sal said, spreading his arms, "you look tired." Vincent kept his face calm. "I had a long night." Sal gestured toward the chair. "Sit. Let's talk like brothers." Vincent sat. Marcus stayed near the door, silent, a shadow with loyalty in his posture. Vincent slid his phone into the inside pocket of his suit jacket, with the microphone facing out. The recording app was already running. Sal leaned forward. "Word is you've been digging," he said, "looking behind paintings." Vincent didn't react. "Funny. I didn't know paintings were your concern." Sal smiled. "Everything that's yours is my concern. That's what partnership means." Vincent's voice stayed even. "Is that what you call kidnapping a boy and using a 4-year-old girl as a messenger?" Sal's smile thinned. "Careful," he warned, still gentle. "Those are ugly words." Vincent held his gaze. "Truth can be ugly." Sal lifted his coffee, took a slow sip, and set it down with care. "You know what I like about you," he said. "You get emotional, but you still think. That's why I've kept you alive." Vincent felt heat behind his eyes, but he kept his voice quiet. "Kept me alive." Sal nodded as if discussing business margins. "You were a project, Vince. You were expensive. You were worth it." He tapped the desk. "Now there's a new project. A real Caruso." Vincent's jaw tightened. "Eli." Sal's eyes gleamed. "Eli," he repeated. "Cute kid. Quiet. Easy to shape if you start early." Vincent forced his breathing steady. "You don't get to shape him." Sal's tone cooled. "I get to shape whatever I can control." Before we continue, tell me in the comments what you think of this story so far and what you would do in his place. Don't leave the video because what comes next will give you chills. Vincent leaned back. "Then tell me what you control." Sal's smile returned, almost kind. "The city, the routes, the accounts, Mark Kessler, the vendors, and the people you care about." He paused, watching Vincent's face. "Nora. Mia. That's her name, right? Little wrist bruise. Big eyes." Vincent's blood went cold. "Leave them out of this?" Sal shrugged. "They're already in. You brought them in when you took the bait." Vincent kept his tone level. "What do you want, Sal?" Sal spread papers across the desk. "Sign these," he said. "Transfer control. Hand me the folder from the red room, hand me the recorder, bring me the boy, then I stop squeezing." Vincent stared at the papers without touching them. "And if I don't?" Sal's voice stayed calm. "Then a mother in Brooklyn learns what forever crying means." He sipped his coffee again. "And your little messenger learns that brave doesn't matter." Vincent's nails dug into his palm. He couldn't lunge. He couldn't shout. He had to win clean, or he'd lose everyone. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a different envelope. "I came to negotiate," Vincent said. Sal's eyebrows lifted. "Finally." Vincent slid the envelope across the desk. "In there is what you want," he lied, letting his voice carry the right exhaustion. "A copy of the trust documents, a list of accounts, enough to start." Sal's hand hovered over it, greedy and careful at once. "You brought it?" Vincent met his eyes. "I brought proof that you can't keep threatening kids and expect me to stay still." Sal laughed. "You still think you're the boss?" Vincent spoke softly. "Say it," he pushed. "Say what you're doing." Sal's smile sharpened. "Fine. I'm taking the empire," he said. "I'm using Eli as the rightful heir. I'm making you disappear without a single gunshot. And if you fight, I'll crush the people you accidentally started caring about." Vincent felt the words sink into the recording like nails. He nodded once as if accepting. "Where is Eli?" he asked. Sal leaned back, satisfied. "Safe, with my people. You'll bring me the originals tonight, and you'll get him back, along with Nora and Mia still breathing." Vincent stood slowly, careful not to show the storm inside him. "Tonight," he repeated, making it sound like obedience. Sal's grin widened. "Pier 12, Red Hook, midnight. Come alone." Vincent turned toward the door. Sal called after him, pleasant again. "Oh, Vince, don't try anything heroic. Heroes get children hurt." Vincent didn't answer. He left with the recording captured, his face calm, his heart pounding. Outside the building, cold air hit his lungs, and for the first time in years he prayed, not to be saved, but to be strong enough to do the saving. Because tonight he wasn't walking into a meeting. He was walking into a choice that would define who he really was. In the SUV, Marcus handed Vincent a second phone. "Reyes is on," he said. Agent Daniel Reyes was not a friend, but he was a door Sal couldn't bribe quickly. Vincent played 20 seconds of Sal's confession. Silence, then Reyes' voice went sharp. "Pier 12, midnight," Reyes said. "You show you keep your hands visible and you do exactly what I say." Vincent looked at Marcus. "We take their cameras, we take their paperwork," he said, "and we take the kids home. No sirens until my signal and no one fires a shot." Vincent didn't sleep. He sat in the dark of the safe apartment with Eli, watching the child's chest rise and fall, listening to the city's distant hum like it was a warning siren only he could hear. Eli had finally hugged the cheap bear, but even in sleep, his small hand stayed on the key. Near dusk, Vincent's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo appeared. Nora's face, pale, mouth covered by a hand. Behind her, Mia's pink jacket. Beneath the photo were 4 words: midnight, Pier 12. Originals. Vincent's blood went cold. then hot. Sal had found the safe apartment anyway. Marcus burst in minutes later, jaw clenched. "We lost the camera feed for 30 seconds, he said. "That's all it took. 2 men in maintenance uniforms. They walked in like they belonged." Vincent stared at Eli, still sleeping. "Did they touch him?" Marcus shook his head. "Not him. They wanted the women. They took Nora and Mia." Vincent's stomach twisted. Sal had promised he would squeeze. This was the squeeze. He had grabbed the only people Vincent couldn't treat like pieces on a board. Vincent forced himself to breathe. Panic made mistakes, and mistakes killed children. He knelt beside Eli and brushed curls from the boy's forehead. "Wake up," he said softly. Eli blinked, confused, then sat up, clutching the bear. "Where's Mia?" Eli asked immediately. Vincent's throat tightened. "She's with her mom," he lied gently. "We're going to bring them back." Eli looked down at the key. "He said it would happen," he whispered. Vincent hated the word he, hated that a child's world had a he who made rules. "Not if I stop it," Vincent said. He called Agent Reyes from the second phone. Reyes answered with clipped urgency. Vincent gave him the photo, the message, the time. "He's escalating," Vincent said. "He has a 4-year-old. Reyes's voice hardened. "Then we end it tonight. My team will be in place. You do not improvise." Vincent almost laughed. Improvisation was how he'd survived his whole life, but tonight improvisation meant Mia. "I won't," Vincent said, and meant it. Marcus assembled a plan with quiet precision. 2 vehicles, 1 real, 1 decoy. No uniforms, no guns visible. Vincent would bring the lockbox and recorder in a plain bag. The originals would be real because Sal would know the weight of paper and the smell of ink. The difference was that Vincent had already made copies for Reyes, and the FBI had already marked every page. Before leaving, Vincent took Eli to a small bedroom and knelt again. "Listen to me," he said. "You stay with Donna, Marcus's EMT friend. You do not open the door for anyone, even if they say my name, understand?" Eli's eyes grew watery, but he didn't cry. "Are you coming back?" Vincent swallowed. "Yes." Eli held up the key. "Do you want it?" Vincent hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. It's safer with me." Eli placed the key in Vincent's palm with solemn care, like giving away a piece of himself. Vincent closed his fingers around it and felt the small metal bite into his skin. They drove to Red Hook with the city's lights reflected on the river like broken glass. Vincent watched the docks grow closer and thought about how his father had built an empire on fear, and how Sal was about to inherit it by using a child's tears as ink. Pier 12 was quiet, industrial, lit by harsh lamps. Shipping containers made corridors. Wind moved through gaps like whispered threats. Vincent stepped out alone, bag in hand, his coat open to show he wasn't carrying a weapon. In the distance, he knew Reyes's team was hidden, watching through scopes and cameras, waiting for one clear moment. Sal arrived in a black SUV, calm as always. Mark Kessler came out with him, briefcase in hand, face pale, eyes darting. Mark looked like a man who had finally realized paperwork could get him killed. Then a side door opened, and Nora stumbled out, wrists zip-tied, eyes wide with terror. Beside her, Mia was carried by a guard, her small body limp with exhaustion, her face pressed against the man's shoulder. She looked half asleep, like crying had drained her dry. Vincent's chest tightened so hard it hurt. Sal smiled. "See? Everyone's fine." Mia lifted her head and saw Vincent. Her eyes widened. She didn't run because she couldn't. Her mouth opened and a thin sound came out, barely a word. "Sir." Vincent took one step forward, then stopped when the guard adjusted his hold on her. Not violent, not yet, but the message was clear. "Put her down," Vincent said, voice low. Sal sighed. "After business." Mark opened the briefcase and laid papers on a crate. "Mr. Caruso," Mark said, voice shaking. "Sign and we can end this." Vincent looked at Nora. Her eyes pleaded. Not for herself, for Mia. Vincent turned back to Sal. "You used a child," he said. Sal's grin sharpened. "I used leverage. Don't act shocked. This is the world you built." Vincent's hand tightened on the bag strap. "You built it too." Sal stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Bring me the originals," he said. "Bring me the boy after, and you can keep breathing in peace." Vincent met his eyes, letting hate stay hidden. "Say the plan," he said softly. "For the record." Sal laughed. "The record?" he mocked. Vincent kept his face neutral. "Say it anyway." Sal's smile turned cold. Fine, he said. I take the Empire. I place Eli as heir. I bury you in a court file. And if you resist, I break the women until you stop. Vincent felt the confession settle into the night like a trap closing, and somewhere behind the containers, Agent Reyes heard every word. Vincent nodded once, pretending surrender, while his thumb pressed the hidden button on his phone. One silent signal. He didn't look toward the shadows. He only waited for salvation to move. Vincent set the bag on the crate but didn't let go. He watched Sal's eyes, watched the guard holding Mia, watched Mark's trembling hands on the paperwork. The whole pier felt like it was balancing on one breath. Sal leaned in, voice low. Sign. Vincent's mouth was dry. First, he said, untie Nora. Put Mia down. Sal smiled like a patient teacher. After. Vincent nodded once, as if accepting. Then he reached into the bag and pulled out the recorder from the red room, holding it up like an offering. You want the truth, he said. Here. Sal's eyes narrowed. What are you doing? Vincent pressed play. Anthony Caruso's voice echoed under the dock lights. The lie, the adoption, Sal's name, Eli's name. Mark's face drained of color. Nora stared, confused, but Mia's eyes fixed on Vincent like she understood only one thing. The scary men were talking about boys and doors again. Sal's smile vanished. Turn that off, he hissed. Vincent kept it playing a few seconds longer, long enough for Reyes's team to capture clean audio. Then Vincent stopped it, calm. You helped steal a child, Vincent said to Sal. You don't get to raise one. Sal's jaw tightened. I gave you a life. You gave me a cage, Vincent replied. Sal's hand flicked. The guard holding Mia shifted his grip, turning her face away from Vincent. Mia whimpered, small and broken. Nora jerked forward, restrained by another man. Vincent's instinct screamed to move, to break bodies, to grab the child. But he didn't. He held still because one wrong move could make Sal decide to prove a point. Sal stepped closer, until they were only a foot apart. You're not even a Caruso, Sal whispered. You're a borrowed name, a dog in a stolen collar. Vincent felt the words hit, but they didn't knock him down anymore. Then take the collar, he said. I'll still stop you. Sal's eyes flashed with hate. You won't stop anything. Vincent kept his gaze steady and spoke louder, forcing the peer to hear. Sal Russo, he said. You said you would break Nora and Mia if I resisted. You said you would take Eli and use him as a flag. You said you'd erase me in court. Did I hear you right? Sal blinked, realizing too late what Vincent was doing. Shut up, he snapped. Vincent lifted his hands slightly, palms out, and repeated slow and clear, You said you'd hurt them. Sal's face twisted. You're playing games. That was the moment Reyes chose. Federal agents. Reyes's voice cut through the night, amplified, sharp. Salvatore Russo, Mark Kessler, drop what's in your hands and step away from the hostages. Containers' doors clanged. Dark figures surged from shadows. Flashlights snapped on. Commands overlapped. The pier went from quiet to controlled chaos in a heartbeat. Sal's men panicked. Not wildly, not violently, but enough. One guard released Mia to grab for his waistband and froze when 3 red dots appeared on his chest from distant sights. He lifted his hands instead. Mia slid from his arms and stumbled. Vincent moved before he could think. He caught her, scooped her up, and turned his body so she faced his chest, not the shouting men. Mia's tiny hands clutched his suit like it was a rope. It's okay, Vincent murmured. You're okay. Mia shook, making small, broken sounds. Nora cried out her name and tried to run, but an agent was already cutting her restraints. Sal stood frozen for a fraction of a second, the mask finally slipping. Vince, he snarled. You'd bring the feds to our pier. Vincent held Mia tighter. You brought a child, he said, so I brought a bigger cage. Reyes approached with his weapon lowered but ready, eyes locked on Sal. Hands behind your head, Reyes ordered. Sal's gaze flicked to Vincent, venomous. He's dirty too, Sal spat. He's been running this whole thing. Vincent didn't deny it. He lifted his chin. I never said I was clean, he told Reyes. I said the kids needed to live. Reyes's expression didn't soften, but his voice stayed even. We'll talk, he said. Then, louder to Sal, now, hands behind your head. Sal hesitated, looking for a crack, a loophole, a loyal man still willing to die for him. He found none. His men were dropping to their knees. Mark was shaking so hard he could barely hold his briefcase. Sal raised his hands slowly, furious. Agents moved in, cuffed him, and turned him toward the vans. Sal's eyes burned on Vincent as he was led away. "This isn't over," Sal hissed. "That boy will be mine." Vincent's voice went quiet, iron under calm. "No," he said. "That boy will be a kid." Reyes gestured toward Vincent with two agents, not rough but firm. "Caruso," Reyes said. "You're coming with us too." Vincent nodded once. He shifted Mia in his arms and looked at Nora, who had collapsed to her knees, holding her daughter's small hand like she was checking she was real. Nora's eyes met Vincent's, filled with hatred, gratitude, and exhaustion all at once. "You promised," she whispered. Vincent swallowed. "I'm keeping it," he said. As agents guided Vincent toward a vehicle, Mia clung tighter. She whispered into his collar, voice barely there. "Don't make my mommy cry forever." Vincent closed his eyes for a heartbeat. "I won't," he promised again, even though he knew promises always cost something. And tonight, he was finally ready to pay. Inside the van, Reyes let Vincent make one call. Donna answered on speaker, breathless. "Eli's here," she said. "He's safe. He keeps asking about Mia." Vincent exhaled, relief sharp as pain. Reyes leaned in. "We located Grace Mallory," he added. "She's the executor. She's ready to testify about the trust and Sal's pressure." Vincent nodded slowly. The net was closing from every side, exactly as Sal had feared. For once, Vincent didn't feel hunted. He felt guided toward a clean ending at last. Vincent spent the next 48 hours in rooms with fluorescent lights and no windows. There were no threats, no fists, no shouting, only questions that cut in a different way. Names, dates, accounts, routes, vendors, the quiet mechanics of an empire built to look invisible. Agent Reyes didn't pretend to like Vincent. He didn't pretend to hate him either. He treated him like a man who had done harm and then chosen, finally, to stop a worse harm. "You're not getting a halo," Reyes said. "You're getting a chance." Vincent signed the cooperation agreement with a hand that felt steadier than it had in years. Not because he was brave, but because the lie had already fallen. There was nothing left to protect except the people who deserved protection. Grace Mallory arrived on the third day with her hair pulled back and her eyes calm in the way of someone who had already cried in private. When Vincent saw her across the interview table, his chest tightened. He had imagined her angry. He had not imagined her steady. "You sent me away," Grace said quietly. Vincent nodded. "I thought I was saving you." Grace's gaze didn't soften. "You were saving yourself from feeling responsible," she corrected. Then she glanced at Reyes. "But he did save the kids." Reyes didn't argue. He slid documents toward Grace and she read with focused care. She confirmed the trust, the contingencies, the way Anthony Caruso had tried to keep Sal from touching Eli. "Anthony knew Sal would come," she said. "He made me executor because he knew Sal couldn't own me." Vincent's throat tightened. "I'm sorry," he told her. Grace looked at him for a long moment. "I believe you," she said, and it hurt more than anger would have. Sal Russo's case moved fast once the recordings and marked documents hit the court system. Sal tried to charm, then tried to threaten, then tried to bargain. Nothing stuck. The judge didn't care that Sal wore expensive shoes. The jury didn't care that he smiled. They cared that a man had used a child as leverage and called it business. Mark Kessler broke first. He took a deal, testified, handed over emails, phone logs, vendor credentials. He cried in a courtroom where no one had ever cried for Vincent. When the sentencing came, Sal stared straight at Vincent as if hatred could rewrite reality. "You're nothing," Sal mouthed silently, like a last prayer. Vincent didn't look away. He didn't answer. Nothing was a place he could live now, if it meant Eli could live as someone. Vincent's own sentence was not gentle. Reyes had been honest. Cooperation wasn't a free pass. It was a trade. Vincent accepted prison time, asset forfeiture, and a permanent collapse of the world he'd built. The court stripped his name from companies, properties, and accounts. The empire that had once sounded like power, reduced to pages in a file. And yet Vincent felt lighter. Nora and Mia entered witness protection with new names and a new city. Nora returned to nursing. Mia started preschool. She stopped waking up screaming after 2 months. The bruise on her wrist faded, but the memory stayed in her body for a while. Grace arranged therapy, and Nora accepted it after the first session, when Mia finally said in a small voice that she had thought she was too little to be brave. Eli stayed with Grace in a quiet neighborhood where kids rode bikes and the scariest men were crossing guards. He started kindergarten late, cautious, but he laughed once on the second week when a teacher made a silly face. Grace called Vincent through Reyes, one monitored call a month, not as a gift but as a thread that kept Eli's story from snapping. On the first call, Eli didn't speak. He held the bear and stared at the screen, studying Vincent with the same careful measuring he had shown from the beginning. Vincent didn't force words, he just said, "Hi Eli, you're safe." Then he stayed quiet, letting the silence be kind instead of threatening. On the third call, Eli finally whispered, "Mia okay?" Vincent's throat tightened. "Mia is okay," he said. "She's learning to feel safe again." Eli nodded, satisfied, then asked the question Vincent had been dreading and hoping for at the same time. "Are you my dad?" Vincent swallowed. He could have lied. He could have tried to claim a role that made him feel less empty, but he remembered what it felt like to grow up inside someone else's lie. "No," Vincent said gently. "I'm not your dad. I'm someone who should have protected you sooner." Eli frowned, thinking hard. "You're Vincent," he decided, simple and final. Then he held up the brass key. "I still have it." Grace explained later that Eli kept it in a drawer like a talisman, not because he wanted the red door, but because it reminded him that the scary story had ended, and that endings could be real. Years would pass. Vincent would finish his sentence. He would not return to the throne. Grace made sure of that, and so did Vincent. When he walked out, older and quieter, he would have no empire waiting. He would have work, small and honest. He would have the knowledge that a fragile little girl's whisper had shattered him and rebuilt him at the same time. Before he was transferred, Vincent wrote one letter for Mia. It wasn't an apology written to ease his conscience. It was a promise written for her future, that no one would ever use her bravery against her again. Reyes delivered it through the program. Nora later sent back a single photo, Mia holding a crayon drawing of a blue mailbox and a sun. On the back, Nora wrote, "She's smiling." Vincent kept that photo like a medal. What did you think of the story? Subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who will also be moved today.